welcome everyone for this learning webinar to turn your fear into power, which is hosted by and taken by our dear mentor Meghna Parvate ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking this webinar for everyone, giving us the opportunity to learn from you. Meghna ma'am is an enterprise agile coach and a seasoned IT professional with more than 2 decades of experience in PMO, agile coaching, and applications development. Meghna ma'am is very passionate about sharing her experiences and learnings and is active on various online platforms and has been a profound speaker in various conferences worldwide. On the personal front, Meghna ma'am is married to Niranjan Parvate and has a 12-year-old daughter named Arushi. Meghna ma'am has a long list of hobbies, of which what she enjoys most is traveling, quizzing, cooking, and multitude of DIY endeavors with her daughter. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Preeti. Uh, so, first and foremost, thanks a lot for making it to this webinar on a Friday evening. I know, in a way, I'm between you and the weekend, but I'm sure you will definitely have some interesting insights post the webinar today. And it's not easy to carve out this time for our own development and learning something new. Um, Especially when we have uh, a lot happening and a lot of responsibilities. All right, let's proceed. So, Preeti shared a very interesting introduction, and beyond that, I would like to add something more to it. Uh, the first and foremost thing is I enjoy writing exams. And up until now, beyond my formal education, graduation, and the likes, which all of us undergo when we are in our academic portion of our life. Beyond that, every few months I attempt a new certification or a new course. I do that every few months. Beginning of every year, I have a little list for myself that this is what I want to learn in this year, and in a very formal setting I want to do that, and I want to write an exam so that I really get to know how much I learned about it. So this way now I have lost track of how many certifications I have written. Probably I have somewhere like 30 plus certifications from various tracks, not only a particular stream of study, or not only my professional aspect, but a variety of certifications. So, with that being said, I'm all excited to share my journey, and of course a few more interesting insights into people I have known, I have read about, and how they have encountered all of these, how they have really made it big for themselves in life. And I want you to also understand and have some key takeaways from that context. So, with that being said, let's start with today's webinar on a very interesting topic: turning your fear into power. So here's what we have from the perspective of the slides that I thought, I will cover in a nutshell. Why do we have exams at all? I mean, why? Why should we be writing something every few days, weeks, months, years, whatever that is? And how do we adapt? We know that it's going to happen. And yeah, the entire paradigm of exams, and exams will come to you in various forms. We'll also discuss that. But since this is inevitable, how do we prepare better? How do we make ourselves really, really well prepared, that full kit preparation? And how do we take it from there? What really causes these jitters, these fears? And of course, I'm not a medical uh, expert per se, but I will include a short video which really talks about how uh, the the psychology and other aspects come into being, and how are they associated, what exactly is the jittery feeling and the likes. And then of course we'll sum it all with a very, very interesting takeaway for all of you, so that you can really learn and practice it every single day. So let's get on to the topic. Now, when we hear the word exam, what typically comes to our notice is, the school exam, the college university curriculum, and the exams that we write over there. But that's probably, in my honest opinion, that's only one portion of the exams that we undergo. Exams probably come to us in various forms, at least that's how I look at it, and I prefer to look at it. You might as well have, so one aspect is the written exams, the other would be your practicals, your vivas, your elocutions, your debates, your presentations. In fact, believe me, I've been speaking in various national international forums for really a long time now. But before every talk that I'm expected to deliver, I do prepare. I do have some quiet time where I assimilate my thoughts, here's what I want to do and the likes. I don't do an over preparation. I don't write a script of every word per se. But yes, I do have a thought lineup and the likes. So exams come to us in various forms. We might as well have interviews, for jobs, for various other things going on. So we might definitely have these interesting conversations. Some prefer to call interview as an exam, some prefer to call it a marketing call, where the candidate as well as the organization that you're looking to get hired, both are really putting their best foot forward and trying to impress each other to really bag that win-win combination. Just like the person, the interviewee needs a job, the interviewer also has a role to fill, has a position to fill. So that could definitely be your exam in a way. And above all, above and beyond all of these three tracks that we just learned about, I would say there are several challenges, situations, impediments. Probably they're also a test of how do you act, react, how do you prepare, and the likes. So I also prefer personally to look at those ones as well as, in sync with any other exam that you would have to attempt. So for me, uh, prefer to look at impediments, challenges, situations, tough situations in particular, also as a test of how you do. And probably the outcome of such an exam is not a score 40 out of 50, whatever that is, but it's probably a lifetime experience. It's probably a very interesting preposition, something on your personal life, and so on. So you could have exams come to you in various forms. And with that being said, let's get on to what exactly is an exam. Okay, so you might have an official uh, a test, it could be written, verbal, whatsoever it is, which really identifies, which really testifies what you know about a particular topic or subject, right? So it is basically a knowledge uh, test kind of thing, which gauges how far you are, what is your competency level, probably. So that's one form of exam. There could be several demonstrations that you might have to do. You might have to undergo practical exams, you might have vivas in college, you might have to report and talk about your research findings. Each of these definitely should be very, very carefully dealt with, because they are going to have an impact on your future as well. So for me, I prefer to look at them also as yet another flavor of exams. Sometimes you have exams as a criteria for selection. So it could be like an entrance exam, it could be an interview. And then we say, okay, a person has really cleared all the criteria that's required for a college admission or a job interview or job offer, and so on. So you could have exams as a criteria for selection. Exams or tests are also a test of your responses and your build and help build experiences. Because one thing I firmly believe in and would like to share with all of you in the form of this forum, and that is, always remember, situations might not be in your control. Sometimes they might, but more often than not they are. um, But with that being kept aside, I think your response is, what do you do after you have encountered a particular situation, or in preparation sometimes of a particular situation? That definitely, for most parts, is under your control, is under your purview, and you can really build a very, very structured approach to taking it from here. And with this being said, let's move on to really understanding, you know, summing all of this together. Why do we have these, call them tough situations, impediments, uh, call them entrance exams, or call them interviews? Because they are, in a way, really a test of your learning. Sometimes sometimes they are a test of your time management, right? With the current ongoing pandemic, we have all found ourselves faced with several impediments which we had never thought of earlier, right? So this is a special time in our life, although the trigger for it is not very acceptable, it's not very pleasing, it's definitely a very hard reality, it's a big problem. But definitely our responses, what do we do to encounter several of these impediments? That is definitely a great test, not only of our time management skills, but overall, I think, of the entire skill set we have on offer. Exams, tests, tough situations, these are the ones who help build our experiences, our exposures. So they are also, in a way, increasing our ability to perform under pressure. So it's like looking at things when you have, some days are, your everything is hunky dory and everything is a cakewalk, and some days are experiences. That's how I prefer to look at them. And if I didn't have the experiences, probably the other days would not be hunky dory. In simple terms, look at it as, uh, be it, if you're a student, those days when you have your schools or college or university lectures to attend, and then other days there are the holidays. So if you didn't have your school days, would you really enjoy your holidays? Because otherwise you wouldn't have any difference between the two, right? So same is the case. uh, there are some things which test our ability to perform under pressure, and when we learn from those, that's when we have probably mastered the art. So when I mentioned about several of the certifications that I have taken, they didn't come naturally. Initially, it was a big journey for me myself. After a few years in the professional life, and when you're done with your graduation, post graduation, like I once was, and then you start thinking, now I've bagged my first job, and probably then the second one and third one, and so on and so forth, and I am now kind of done deal from a learning perspective. At some point in time, we start looking at that, and that's really the time to shake your comfort zone and start preparing. So it wasn't easy for me. And when I really started this journey for myself, when I wrote my first certification exam, that was really a very interesting, and I wouldn't call it a bothering, but I would rather call it a very interesting phase in my life, when I was uh, getting into a new role in my professional life, when I had a new role in my personal life as well. I had a very sweet little daughter, and definitely she needed my time and attention because she was still a toddler, and my professional life needed my attention, my home needed my attention, and somewhere down the line I also had this desire that, yes, now I'm going to definitely increase my professional uh, offering, my professional profile and the likes. So somewhere that was also my calling. And believe me, it's not easy. And hence I always want to include this portion in the talks as well, wherein I say it's also a test of your time management. We always feel if we had little bit more time, we would have done this and that and that. But there's a popular saying, I don't remember anymore where I read it, but I try to recall it every day. And it says, it was in the context of, or the quote reads like, Everyone from office boy to the president of the country has only 24 hours. It just matters what you do with it. So that's how it is. So when we really had the time is definitely not an excuse. You just have to do your best in what you have, and everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. So all these are a test of your ability to prioritize, your ability to take things, learn from them, emerge with double speed. Last but not the least, exams do provide you the necessary qualification. So they are definitely a testimony that you have been a graduate, you've been, certified on so and so and so things. So they definitely give you a certification, an endorsement in one way, and hence they are necessary to provide the much required qualification as well. So that's in a nutshell. Why do we even have these? All right. And before we get into more on how do we prepare, let's look at a little video. And this is more talking in terms of, psychologically how things are. And then I would prefer to come to this slide because you'll be able to appreciate what I want to share a little bit more once you have looked into the video.
Hello, I'm James Hollis, speaking on behalf of the Young Society of Washington. One of the common experiences we all have is the encounter with fear. Fear is natural because life is dangerous. In fact, it's lethal, if you may have noticed. And we all develop sort of reactive patterns to it. And one of the things I've become aware of through the years as a human being, but also as a psychotherapist, is the role that fear plays in organizing our lives, how we protect ourselves against our fears. And our fears often are sort of driving the energies of our life, our avoidances, our compulsivities. And so we always need, at some level, to take on that which our defenses are protecting us from. It's kind of counterintuitive. We want to stay protected from them, but the more we stay protected, the more we stay locked into our reactive patterns. So, for example, there are two sort of existential threats to the survival and well-being of all of us: overwhelmment and abandonment. We learn as children, as infants, the world's big and we're not, the world's powerful and we're not. And so we learn our comparative powerlessness, and we have to adapt to the circumstances around us. So we have a whole series of logical responses to that existential fact that the world's big and we're not. The most primitive of our defenses, and it shows up in so many different ways, is simply avoidance. Stay out of harm's way. Back off. So we have simple avoidance, we have procrastination, we have suppression, where we push things away deliberately and consciously. We have repression, where we push it into the unconsciously to protect our fragile egos. We have numbing and projection onto others, and we have an entire culture out there with a constant 24/7 buzz, which helps distract us from our fears. And we can also have patterns of disassociation. All of those are avoidant patterns, so one needs to ask, where are my patterns of avoidance? Where am I not dealing with those aspects of my life that I need to deal with? Secondly, we can often hook into a power complex, and it shows up in intimate relationships, it shows up in social organizations as well. That one of the ways of coping with the magnitude of the world is trying to get control of it in one way or the other. And often parents are very controlling of their children because they can. Or people in positions of supervision can be abusive and controlling to employees and so forth. And many times that's driven by a personal script, a personal complex. And thirdly, we have patterns of compliance. To deal with the world, give it what it wants. And we have to ask ourselves, where do our patterns of compliance show up? Where has that complicity compromised our integrity, contradicted our values? Then we realize there's an assignment that comes to us in the face of that recognition. For the other experience that's a threat is abandonment. Now, abandonment we often internalize in very personal ways, like what's wrong with me, that you are not caring for me or present as I need you to be present. And so we internalize it as a wound to self-worth or self-esteem. And we all have wounds to self-esteem, of course. And that'll show up in two different ways, one of which is, and the most common, is through patterns of avoidance and self-sabotage. I'll just not show up because I'm incapable of showing up. I will avoid certain things because I'm not worthy of them. Or the reverse, that's also in response to poor self-esteem, that's a kind of sort of overcompensation, where people are driven to, say, acquire status symbols of power and money and so forth, to say, look how important I am, or look how good and generous I am. And that, too, is coming out of an unconscious compensation for that elemental fear of unworthiness. Or secondly, we wind up in, again, the power complex, a kind of narcissistic defense. All of us have a wound that is narcissistic in character that doesn't make us narcissists, where we are constantly defending ourselves and often in many ways, denying the reality of what we've said or done or how people experience us in order to maintain that rather shaky sense of self. Or thirdly, we have an inordinate neediness that keeps showing up in relationships, where our unfinished business from the past continues to impose itself on relationships and ultimately, unfortunately, drives people away. The very thing we fear is produced by our own behaviors. So all of these defenses we have are perfectly natural. If humankind hadn't found ways of coping with fear, we still wouldn't be here as a species on this planet. On the other hand, these patterns take on a sort of life of their own, a certain autonomy. They create lifelong patterns in our lives. So from time to time, we really have to ask ourselves the question, where are my avoidances showing up in my life and undermining an authentic mode of self-expression? Where am I perhaps complying with pressures from outside that actually violate my integrity or my values? Or where am I caught in some kind of archaic defense of a shaky self, and I need to be more present and trusting in myself? These are important questions, and the failure to ask them means that I'm living in bad faith with myself and, of course, bad faith with other people. Now, if you're interested in this subject or subjects like it, I would invite you to consider taking a class or attending a lecture from the Jung Society of Washington. Thank you.
So, I hope this was really interesting. Um, I couldn't have explained it better. I always personally enjoy this particular video. The reason being, it tells a lot about the fact that fear actually lies within us and not externally. So, when it lies within us, then we can also make a difference. We can overcome it, just like we have, in a way, thought about it, in a way, created it, or something on those lines. We are the ones who can make a difference. And now, from really the um, fear to look at things straight in the face, fear to encounter something, I'm going to turn my attention and my talk a little bit to sharing how do you really prepare to make it your biggest asset. And that's really what I want all of us to spend the rest of the evening. I will share some of the things that I have learned, practiced, and enjoyed the most. And then I'm going to open the forum for any particular thoughts or insights or anything you want to ask, given a particular situation. How did I prepare? What did I do differently? Because definitely, there must have been some success mantra which keeps going beyond so many years of experience and so many exams and the likes. So I'm going to talk about, first and foremost, how do you really turn your attention to something that's more uh, optimistic, that's more doable. And believe me, I have always been surrounded with so many different roles and different challenges that I've had to play with and encounter. So It is very doable. It just lies in our beliefs that yes, I can and I will do it. And then it really becomes possible. Some things will work, some will not, but nevertheless treat it as an experience and move on. So, how do you make the most of it? First and foremost, when you're preparing for something, it can be an exam, it can be trying out a new recipe. Yeah, believe me, like many of us who keep studying until they really have to be on your own. Some of us move out of our parents home probably to join a course in the university or take up a new job or get married or something like that. I was in a similar situation, right? I knew exactly some 3 to 4 dishes, how to prepare them, 3 to 4 recipes. That was all the cooking in the entire world that I knew about. And then I married someone who was a foodie to the core, and then started my endeavors. And some of the recipes at the beginning of the time that I started to learn cooking, and I'm talking about the time when YouTube and Google weren't there. Okay, so it was definitely a tough journey, and that's when it started. Some things failed miserably. They weren't even fit for human consumption, probably, as I now look back upon it and say. But I learned a lot. I learned immensely. And that's what I'm definitely looking at sharing, be it my endeavors with cooking, or be it really working in the corporate life. All these were a lot of fun when I look back on it. And there have been things which really went upside down, but I took it in my stride and said, I will do better next time. And there will be a next time. That's the most important belief. So, when you're preparing for something, make sure you appraise yourself of what's to come. Okay, uh, be it the syllabus, be it the books, reference links. I know in this age right now we are uh, flooded with information, but really getting your hands onto the right information is also crucial. And one thing I really encourage everyone to do is read about, or better still, if you have the opportunity to talk to somebody, you talk to somebody, understand the experiences of how it has been with a given situation or an exam or a course or a preparation, anything like that for that matter. Understand from people who have done it before. There definitely must be somebody uh, who has done it before. If you can lay your hands, if you're probably really venturing into a new frontier, then definitely you have or can connect with people who have curated the particular workshop or the course or something like that. So hear it from people. uh, while attempting things on your own is very interesting, sometimes there might not be the possibility, sometimes there might not be the time to learn everything from experiences. So try and bank on experiences of others as well. Of course, don't get carried away, because every person's experience to a great extent is unique, and you have to consider experience as a combination of the skills and the factors and the situation. So uh, it's very, very interesting. So I know a lot of you, and I used to do it myself. Okay, let me acknowledge this on the public forum. I used to definitely look at, when we're preparing for exams, all that sample practice test and those kind of things. Yeah, or past years question papers, or now you have a lot of online multiple choice certification exams, so you still have that practice test concept. So make the most of it. I would really recommend people to go through it, and go through it like a formal exam. So kind of detach yourself, really focus on it as if it were a main exam kind of thing. So use that to your advantage. Talk to people, look at blogs, understand how the experiences have been, from people who have been there, done that. It is going to help you a lot. It will help reduce your surprises, whether it is any of your tests and certifications that you have to pass, or even when you're going for some of the countries, when you need to apply for a visa, they have a procedure to apply for it. So when I prepared for some of my travels, I spoke to people who had been to that country before, and I said, how is the visa processing, how is the immigration, what kind of questions they ask, what do they like to know, and just generally understand. So what I'm trying to tell you is, try and ensure whatever best you can do to prepare. Okay, so if you're starting to prepare a new recipe, make sure you have all the ingredients in place and you have a little sequence of events in your mind. This is what has to be done, and then this and this and this. So have a little mind map of yourself, for yourself. What does it take to get into this particular journey, write this particular exam, or attempt this for the first time? It might be your first time, but definitely somebody else in the world would definitely know. The second most important thing that I always recommend to people is to enhance your memory capabilities. Okay, and it is possible to enhance. Believe me, all of us are born with some of this, but a lot of this can be nurtured as well. All right, so I'm trying to put focus on what you can nurture. And again, believe me, it's possible, it is doable. So first and foremost, prepare well in the time that you have. Try to set a proper priority. What do you want to do given X number of days or hours or months that you have? How do you want to go step by step? What do you want to do? How do you want to best utilize the time that you have? This is a very, very important mantra, because you will never have 24 hours in a day. You will have, your time will be pulled into various directions. You might be handling multiple things at the same time. So everything is just about important. And, it applies to men and women alike. Our professional or academics demands our attention, our families demand our attention, whether you're a student, whether you're uh, married and working, whether you have spouse and children to take care of. Irrespective of your background, you have certain family commitments. They demand your attention in one form or the other. So what I'm trying to tell you is, let's acknowledge that we will always be in this demanding situation, and we have to make the most. There is never a proper best time to do things. Okay, so sometimes you just have to, without waiting for the best of the best and eternal things, rather than that, in the current situation, can I do something? Let's do that, because today is a gift. That's why it's called as a present, and that is completely in your control. So you don't know what's going to happen in future. No one was able to predict, no one ever predicted that we will be in a pandemic situation. The entire world equation will change for 8 to 9 months now, probably more. We don't know. So these situations will never be in your control, and hence don't wait for that elite moment to arrive. Go for it in whatever you have. Focus on what is there in your hands in comparison to what's going to happen in future. Most important, stay relaxed. I'm not saying take a back seat. I'm just saying take it easy. Don't overburden. Don't overstress yourself. Don't do an overkill. When you're preparing for something, ensure to take short breaks. Your energy levels, your enthusiasm is very, very important. Whether it's an exam, whether it's a Viva preparation, whether it's an interview, this enthusiasm is very important. When I do uh, a lot of job interviews, when I select people for my company, I look for one important characteristic, how much of energy and appetite this person has to learn new things. Because when this person will get to my organization, he or she will have to learn significant number of things. He or she will have to contribute. There will be changes in the business, disruptions in the space, in the product space that we are working in. So it's very, very important that this person is not overburdened by something. This person is relaxed. This person has the right enthusiasm. So it's important to keep your energy levels at a sustainable pace. Sometimes not too much, and sometimes really going to the rock bottom is not going to help you. Sustainable pace is like your body pulse rate. Okay, too much is bad, too less is also bad. So avoid that hypotension kind of thing, but really keep it at a sustainable pace so that you can make the most of every day that comes. And above all, when you're preparing for something, try to do a little bit of, I don't know whether it is to be called meditation or not, but it's more like recall the content, revise, and so on. So try to, do a little bit of self introspection on things, build your own mind maps, and so on. The third portion that I want to really, give all of you as a key takeaway is, first and foremost, exams are mainly, in a way, they are not an end by itself. They're a means to an end. Okay, so what's important is that you have an understanding of the subject for which you are preparing for. It's important to know the content, the subject well, above and beyond those grades and CGPAs. I know the grades and percentages and CGPAs are important. I'm not trying to demean their importance. What I'm trying to tell you is that they are a means to an achievement of a goal. The bigger goal is to be excellent as much as you can, to be great at the subject and the content, because that's what is going to take you places. Not many people ask me how much of percentage I have had in my graduation exam, but probably how much of that could I implement over all these years. So I have to know the content much, much better than, the big fight for the exam grades themselves. So we'll definitely take questions when we are through with the slides. There is one question right now which talks about how do you evaluate candidate enthusiasm during an interview. I will definitely give you some key insights into what I have been doing. Hope you find those useful, but let's take them towards the end of the slide deck. The second portion of the exposure is all about how this correlates to the practicalities in life. Where is the learning implemented? Because you're going to write your exams once, but you are going to implement this probably way many more number of times. So while it's important to prepare well and write your exams very well, it's also important that you understand the big picture behind it. Where exactly is this getting into? When I learn something, when I learn about a scientific experiment, how does this correlate in my day to day world? When I undergo a certification on probably ways of working in the IT industry, how am I going to take it away in my everyday work? These kind of thoughts are very important, and you might not have all the answers. That's where coaches and trainers and teachers come into picture. The next slide, fear of exams. Yes, a lot of us do have. I would not I would not say that I never had one such. Okay, I do. Like all of us, like most of us. And believe me, small amount of fear is also good. Okay, it helps prepare better. It's more of a healthy preparation, full kit with everything from the physical aspects, having two sets of pens if you are planning to write the exam, to really having the right mind maps in place so that you remember your formulae and the likes. So there are several things that go into preparing better. And of course, don't forget the mindset aspect of it. It's important that we are relaxed, we're focused, and the likes. But when this fear becomes excessive, there's a formal term to it. It's called examinophobia or testophobia. And one good thing about it is it's possible to overcome. If you are structured, you can win over this, and you can make it your biggest asset. So we will now learn on what is my personal mantra of turning fear into power. And then we are also going to look at a few success stories where I know of people, some personally, but some through reading several books and articulations on them. How have people done it? So we're going to look at all of that. But before we get into the examples, let's look at the interesting mantra. First important aspect is, and I'm a firm believer that we all have something interesting in us. We have something really, really good, which is our strength. Never ever forget your strength. Believe in it, believe in yourself. You're definitely special. You have something that's very, very positive. Depends on whether it is unique or not, but we'll keep the uniqueness aside. Definitely, each of us comes with some strength. So make sure you think about it positively. There is something special in each one of us. There is something which makes us strong. Be open to advice. I've learned a lot from people, getting expert opinions, and this expert can come in various forms. Your children, your co-workers, the elderly population at home, even the support staff that works. I used to have somebody who would drive me down to office when I was really having a big commute. And believe me, I learned a lot of life's practicalities from this person. I think he never studied beyond the 10th grade or something, although I would keep encouraging him to study something. But of what I know, I think grade 10 was the last latest qualification that he had. But he had certain very interesting advice which he would keep sharing. And I really appreciate that. So be open. There can be so many channels in which you will hear things, you will learn things. But at the same time, keep your wisdom high enough that you can make your own decisions. So you can take all kind of advice in the world. Sometimes there is a lot of free advice lying around as well. So listen to everything. Whether you agree or not, whether you want to do that or not, is a factor of your wisdom. The third most important element of the mantra is, don't live somebody else's aspirations. I know sometimes we are rushing behind something which we probably don't believe in. And this could be a factor of various things. We would have shared or learned this from people around. It could be the expectation our parents have from us. It could be whatever, in whatever format you might have this thrust upon you. But look at it in a way that you can realize your potential as well as your dreams that have been, your personal aspirations, as well as something that you have inherited or probably something that was thrust upon you. Try to find a golden mean, and there will be one such. It's just a matter of doing serious retrospection and understanding what are the possibilities, because these things are possible. There was a time, when a lot of my family members thought and felt and dreamt that I should become a medical doctor. Somewhere down the line, I felt for myself that's not my calling. There were various factors behind it, and that's how I came to a conclusion in my late teens and early adulthood that yeah, probably that's not what I want to do. Now comes the situation of finding the golden mean. Okay, so you can't do both, but I opted for a career in engineering. I did become an engineer. And then how do I blend this with those aspirations of doing something for the medical world? Um, I made a very interesting proposition. So first thing I did is, in my graduation, many of us have electives. So I opted for an elective which is in the field of medical science. I opted for that. So that was my first interesting step, that yes, both of these can be combined into one. And then, secondly, for some period of time, I worked for a medical devices, medical systems company. So both the aspirations were satisfied. My family was more than happy that I was working for such an organization for some time at least. And they felt very, very elated at the thought that I'm contributing to something which they really wanted me to see and do. So, best of both worlds, win win situations, as we call them, are possible. Just a matter of thinking hard and thinking smart. The next mantra is all about being a continuous learner. Your learning doesn't finish with grade 12, it doesn't better still finish with graduation, post graduation, bagging your first job, or becoming successful in your first business endeavor. It doesn't pause there. Learning comes to us in various forms, and that's only going to help you very positively in encountering your most dreaded situations. You never know where the learning could be useful either, right? So make sure you go about continuously learning new and new things from various channels that are available around you. The next mantra is that, whatever we call as impediments, hurdles, and interviews, these are not the end of the world. And I firmly believe that every dark cloud definitely has a silver lining. Sometimes it has a golden lining as well. Okay. And I'll probably, time permitting, I'll try and give you a few examples. But for those who are well versed with Hindi, there is a very, very interesting uh, that there are a few interesting lines which I always memorize probably every day or every other day. And one of my most favorable quotes of all times is, कौन कहता है कि आसमान में छेद नहीं होते, कभी एक पत्थर तबीयत से उछाल के तो देखो. So we always feel that there is something which is unattainable, impossible. But do we really evaluate whether we try hard? Probably if we tried, we would have gotten there. And my second most important and favorite quote is rather a song. It's probably a movie song. And it's from one of my favorite singers, Kailash Kher. And one line that I always memorize and keep at the back of my mind is "Jo bhi ho kal fir aayega." So whatever happens in the world, there will be the next day, and that day could probably be better. So there's always and always the possibility of something good, something better happening. So never treat these impediments, hurdles, interviews, exams as the end of the world. I've had some exams where I probably, you know, was aspiring to some X percentage or a grade or a CGPA. I didn't get there sometimes. And sometimes I got more than what I anticipated as well. So even those things do happen. There have been some interviews which I have not been able to clear. But that's entirely probably there was one element which was not there. It could be from my side, it could be from the organizations that are interviewing me. It can be anywhere. It can be probably I didn't have the right competency, or maybe one element of the competency or the experience that this particular position requires. So all this has happened, but I have never let that thing stop me. And that's one of the interesting takeaways I would like all of you to have. Don't let this stop you. If you didn't shine in one place, remember that you can always do better at a different place and a forum. So it's just a matter of finding that, just a matter of blending your strengths and capabilities and the right requirement from the other side. Just a golden confluence of these two things. The next mantra is communicate. There have to be, probably those few people in the world whom you can bother with all your deep thoughts inside. Sometimes just communicating about something uh, probably helps you find your own solutions, even if the person on the other side doesn't find. So it's okay to bother those in your close circle, I would say. and communicate with them time and again. For one thing, they will get to know that you are probably seeking some help. May not be from them at all times, but yes, you need some direction, so they might as well help you out. There might be, this might really be a call for something very interesting to happen, or this might just as well be a unspoken call for advice from their side. And if you kind of communicate, you also set forth some expectations. For example, when I have a talk like this, the first thing I do is, when I settle with the date and time, I socialize it at home. Okay, saying that this is a time I need a venue, uninterrupted time to really converse during the webinar, to really share my thoughts with people. And I definitely would not prefer to be doing something else at that time or be distracted with anything else. So, first thing I do is socialize it at home. And then what happens is indirectly, my team gets built. People start thinking, okay, this 1.5 hours she's not going to be available. So do we need something? Do we need to prepare in advance? Or probably, it can be anything, just like, does somebody need this venue? Or does somebody need a gadget which I'm using right now? Or something like that, or those big and small things. So it gets everybody thinking. And you indirectly have built a team which is going to support you because you socialized it with them. Now, my family is not going to come and sit and do this webinar or have this conversation with you, but their support in the back end is going to be very interesting. I have been a long time Android user and Windows user, okay, for the longest time in my life. So using Mac is something which is a little tough. Okay, and if you have noticed that in my introduction, I've been working for more than 2 decades now. So being long time user with Windows or Android kind of things, uh, you have to make special attempts when you want to use a new device. And it happened to me when I started to use a new device, which is a Mac. And this was right in front of a conference that I was supposed to speak in. So my little daughter, she sat beside me. She just showed me everything I'm supposed to do on the Mac so that I'm able to actually open my PPT, mute, unmute, start my video and the likes. And all through that time, she stayed in the room without being in the video frame. She just stayed around. She said, if you need something, I'm there. So that's the power of conversing. That's the power of communication. And believe me, that day on a completely new system, speaking for the first time, it was an amazing experience. Although my daughter was probably bored listening because she had no clue of what I was talking about, and it was a core process topic, which is generally a very dry topic for people to follow, and especially a youngster. I'm not expecting her to understand all of these things, but she just stayed in the room, just by my side, and said, if you need any help, I'm there. So I think that's the power. That's what you need to build, and talk more and more uh, about such things with people around you. They're sure to help you out. Practice, practice, practice. I have not found a different mantra to practicing things a number of times. I have heard that from the best of the best people that I look up to for inspiration, be it Sachin Tendulkar, be it Leander Pace, be it Mahesh Bhupati. I've heard a lot of talks from these people, and each of them very, very aptly mentioned that what did they do differently? What is the difference which people sometimes call as genius? Yes, definitely there is an element of tactics and technique, but there is a bigger element of practice. And never ever give up on this. I have more than 30 presentations that I have made in one form or the other, as in live talks I'm talking about. But till, and this is all external, different events all through the world. but till date, when I submit something, sent it across, yeah, it undergoes a little approval and say, okay, we're good with this, good to proceed, and those kind of things. I do my rehearsals. Believe me, I do that still today. Whether I'm talking in a virtual setting, whether I'm talking in a conference with live audience, in person, and I've spoken in front of, the highest that I have covered ever is 5,000 people live in audience. It is a pretty interesting journey to talk in front of 5,000 people. You can't even see them all in one gasp of your vision. So it's very, very, very interesting experience to talk about. And everywhere, whether it is a virtual setting or a live setting, whether it is in front of 10, 15 people or 5,000 people, practicing it is extremely important. The next is confronting your fears. First and foremost, understand yourself. You don't need to broadcast. I think a lot of people, when we talk about understand yourself, they have the feeling that now I have to share this with somebody. It depends. If you're comfortable, you can share, but nevertheless, I wouldn't really want to ask you to stop there, but rather, even if you don't want to share it with people, you can still try to realize that for yourself. What is it that puts me off? Why? And for what reasons do I get, all those jittery feelings and the likes? What exactly happens? And so on. So basically, try to look at things straight in the face and say, yeah, I understand this happens to me, but I'm going to do something about it because I know I can do it better. Okay. And then build your structured plan to overcome it. This is very, very important, to look at things straight in the face. And as I mentioned, if you're not comfortable sharing your fears with others, don't do that. But first, build up enough confidence to confront them all by yourself. Last but not the least, my eternal mantra: I'm an optimist even in the worst situations. I definitely look at everything that happens around us in a very, very positive context. And that is yet another thing which has taken me places. Look at everything in a very, very positive manner, extremely positive. If it's happened to you, believe me, there is some reason behind it. And if not for anything else, it helps you learn. If not for anything else, it helps you discard options that don't work. As simple as that. So it's still worth spending time and effort over it. But emerge with it very, very positively. With this being said, I will just quickly get on to some of the interesting people that I know of, I've read about, and then I would like to open the forum for a few question and answers from all of you. I would love to share a lot of my thoughts, which probably you didn't experience or just would simply like to know. The first person who has always motivated me when I talk about the topic of encountering your biggest fears and talking about exams and learning, continuous learning, I think one person's name always comes to my mind. And this person is Dr. Shrikant Jitskar. What's special about him? Just look at the number of degrees that you have in the picture. And this person is known as the most qualified person in India. So he obtained more than 20 degrees. Some of us are down with one or two, and I understand why so. But, imagine this person has been probably continuously writing exams for a good period of time, right? 20 degrees, appearing for 42 in university examinations. I mean, it's huge. No one can really even think of it. And what I read somewhere is from the time from 19